The law must continue at all costs, and whatnot. The Battle of Red Mountain, and the rise and fall of the Tribunal. The following is a transcript of the words of Lord Vivek addressed to a dissident priest, Malur Amain, who confronted Vivek with the Ashlander traditions surrounding the Battle of Red Mountain, with the prophecies of the Nerevarine, and to unnamed magistrates of the Inquisition who joined Vivek in interrogating the dissident priest, who can clearly recall the events of the distant past. But you have asked me to tell you, in my own words, the events surrounding the Battle of Red Mountain, the birth of the Tribunal, and the prophecies of a Nerevar reborn. Here is what I can tell you. When the Chimer first abandoned the herds and tents of their nomadic ancestors, and built the first great houses, we loved the Daedra, and worshipped them as gods. But our brethren, the Dwemer, scorned the Daedra and mocked our foolish rituals, and preferred instead their gods of reason and logic. So the Chimer and Dwemer were always at bitter war, until the Nords came and invaded Resdain. Only then did the Chimer and Dwemer put away their strife and join together to cast out the invaders. Once the Nords were driven out, General Nerevar of the Chimer and General Dumak of the Dwemer, who had come to love and respect one another, resolved to make peace between their peoples. In that time, I was but a junior counselor to Nerevar and Nerevar's queen, Almalexia, and his other favorite counselor, Sotha Sil, always doubted that such a peace might long survive, given the bitter disputes between Chimer and Dwemer. But by negotiation and compromise, Nerevar and Dumak somehow managed to preserve a fragile peace. But when Dagoth-Ur, Lord of House Dagoth, entrusted as a friend by both Nerevar and the Dwemer, brought us proof that High Engineer Kagranak of the Dwemer had discovered the heart of Lorkhan, that he had learned how to tap its powers, and was building a new god, a mockery of Chimer faith, and a fearsome weapon. We all urged Nerevar to make war on the dwarves and to destroy this threat to Chimer beliefs and security. Nerevar was troubled. He went to Dumak and asked if what Dagoth-Ur said was true, but Kagranak took great offense, and asked whom Nerevar thought he was, that he might presume to judge the affairs of the Dwemer. Nerevar was further troubled, and made pilgrimage to Hola Mayan, the sacred temple of Azura, and Azura confirmed that all that Dagoth-Ur said was indeed true, and that the creation of a new god of the Dwemer should be prevented at all costs. When Nerevar came back and told us what the goddess had said, he felt our judgments confirmed, and again counseled him to war, chiding Nerevar for his naive trust and friendship, and reminding Nerevar of his duty to protect the faith and security of the Chimer against the impiety and dangerous ambitions of the Dwemer. Oopsie. Then Nerevar went back to Vardenfell one last time, hoping that negotiations and compromise might once again preserve the peace. But this time the friends Nerevar and Dumak quarreled bitterly, and as a result, the Chimer and Dwemer went to war. The Dwemer were well defended by their fortress at Red Mountain, but Nerevar's cunning drew most of Dumak's armies out into the field and pinned them there, while Nerevar, Dagoth-Ur, and a small group of companions could make their way into the heart chamber by secret means. There, Nerevar, the Chimer king, met Dumak, the dwarf king, and they both collapsed with grievous wounds and draining magics. While with Dumak fallen and threatened by Dagoth-Ur and others, Kagranak turned his tools upon the heart, and Nerevar said he saw Kagranak and all his Dwemer companions at once disappear from the world. In that instance, Dwemer everywhere disappeared without a trace, but Kagranak's tools remained, and Dagoth-Ur seized them, but he carried them to Nerevar, saying, That fool Kagranak has destroyed his own people with these things. We should destroy them right away, lest they fall into the wrong hands. So even Dagoth was saying to destroy the tools before something goes wrong, which is a surprise. I almost got a One Ring feeling from this entire situation. But Nerevar was resolved to confer with his queen and his generals, who had foreseen that this war would come and whose counsel he would not ignore again. I will ask the tribunal what we shall do with them, for they have had wisdom in the past that I had not. Stay here, loyal Dagoth until I return. So Nerevar told Dagoth to protect the tools and the heart chamber until he returned. So this is where it goes. Yeah, here's the One Ring element. Is he's probably going to go and then use the heart that he was left with. Then Nerevar was carried to us, where we waited on the slopes of Red Mountain, and he told us all that had transpired under Red Mountain. What Nerevar had said was that the Dwemer had used special tools to turn their people into immortals, and that the Heart of Lorkhan held wondrous powers. Only later did we hear from others present that Dagoth had thought the Dwemer destroyed, not made immortal, and no one knows for sure what really happened there. After hearing Nerevar, we gave our counsel as requested, proposing we should preserve these tools in trust for the welfare of the Chimer people. And who knows, perhaps the Dwemer are not gone forever, but merely transported to some distant realm, from which they may someday return to threaten our security once again. Therefore, we need to keep these tools, to study them and their principles, so that we may be safe in future generations. And though Nerevar voiced his grave misgivings, he was willing to be ruled by our council, under one condition, that we all together should swear a solemn oath upon Azura that the tools would never be used in the profane manner that the Dwemer had intended. We all readily agreed and swore solemn oaths at Nerevar's dictation. So when we went with Nerevar back to Red Mountain and met with Dagoth Dagoth refused to deliver the tools to us, saying they were dangerous and we could not touch them. Dagoth seemed to be irrational, insisting that only he could be trusted with the tools, and that we guessed that he had somehow been affected by his handling of the tools. But now I feel sure that he had privately learned the powers of the tools and had in some confused way decided he must have them for himself. Then Nerevar and our guard resorted to force to secure the tools. Somehow Dagoth and his retainers escaped, but we gained the tools and delivered them to Sotha Sil for study and safekeeping. For some years we kept the oaths we swore to Azura with Nerevar, but during that time, in secret, Sotha Sil must have studied the tools and divined their mysteries. And at last he came to us with a vision of a new world of peace, with justice and honor for nobles, and health and prosperity for the commoners, with the tribunal as immortal patrons and guides. And dedicating ourselves to this vision of a better world, we made a pilgrimage to Red Mountain and transformed ourselves with the power of Kagranak's tools. So that's why there's all these immortal characters that have been around since that period, like Vivek and Almalexia and so on. And no sooner than we had completed our rituals and begun to discover our newfound powers, the Daedra Lord Azura appeared and cursed us for our forsworn oaths. By her powers of prophecy, she assured us that her champion, Nerevar, true to his oath, would return to punish us for our perfidy, and to make sure such profane knowledge might never again be used to mock and defy the will of the gods. But Sotha Sil said to her, "The old gods are cruel and arbitrary, and distant from the hopes and fears of Mer. Your age is past. We are the new gods, born of the flesh, and wise and caring of the needs of our people. Spare us your threats and chiding, inconstant spirit. We are bold and fresh, and will not fear you." So Sotha Sil and these others became immortal via the heart, and essentially just claimed their seat as being the new gods, and that's why the tribunal worships these people that are seemingly still around. As including Nerevar, I believe, was in the room right here with me. And then in that moment, all Chimera were changed into Dunmer, and our skins turned ashen and our eyes into fire. Of course, we only knew at the time that this had happened to us, but Azura said, "This is not my act, but your act. You have chosen your fate and the fate of your people, and all the Dunmer shall share your fate, from now to the end of time. You think yourselves gods, but you are blind, and all is darkness." And Azure left us alone, in darkness, and we were all afraid. But we put on brave faces, and went forth from Red Mountain to build the new world of our dreams. And the new world we shaped was glorious and generous, and the worship of the Dunmer fervent and grateful. The Dunmer were at first afraid of their new faces, but Sotha Sil spoke to them, saying that it was not a curse but a blessing, a sign of their changed natures, a sign of the special favor they might enjoy as new Mer. No longer barbarians trembling before ghosts and spirits, but civilized Mer, speaking directly to the immortal friends and patrons, the three faces of the tribunal. And we were all inspired by Sotha Sil's speech and vision, and took heart, and over time we crafted the customs and institutions of a just and honorable society, and the land of Risdaen knew millennia of peace, equity, and prosperity unknown by other savage races. But beneath Red Mountain, Dagoth-Ur had survived, and even as the light of our bold new world shined ever more brightly beneath Red Mountain, the darkness gathered, a darkness that was close kin to the bright light that Sotha Sil coaxed from the heart of Lorkhan with the tools of Kagranak. As the darkness grew, we fought it, and crafted walls to confine it, but we never could destroy it, for the source of the darkness was the same source as the source of our own divine inspiration. And in these latter days of Morrowind, reduced to a subjugated province of the Western Empire, as the glory of the temple fades, and the dark tide rises from Red Mountain, we are reminded of Azura, and her promised champion's return. We have waited, blind, and into the darkness, mere shadows drained of our ardent vision, a shame of our folly and fear of our judgment, and in hope of our deliverance. We do not know if the Outlander claimed to fulfill the prophecies of the Nerevarine is our old companion Nerevar Reborn, or a pawn of the Emperor, or a catspaw of Azura, or some simple twist of fate. But we insist you adhere to temple doctrine and conform to the strictures dividing the hieroglypha from the apographa, and that you do not speak that which must not be spoken openly. Act as a dutiful priest should, in accordance with your vows of obedience to the canons and archcanons, and all will be forgiven. Defy me, and you will know what it is to stand against a god. That was a really good read, just in general. It's one of the better written documents just in general, but it's also like a really cool story, and it's written in first person from somebody that was actually there, which is a very different perspective than you usually get for these kinds of historical legend type things, because the person's still alive and they're still sticking around. It also raises an interesting idea, like these people that are like, we have this alliance of living gods that seem to rule this region currently, but they are people who get a power from the same source as the evil that they fight, and they can't defeat each other because they are all bound to the singular, united, original source. So instead they just erect these barriers, these ghost gates and ghost fences to just try to hold back the evil, which isn't entirely working because clearly stuff is getting out. There are sleepers outside of those walls, and there are Daedric ruins everywhere filled with things that are similar to what you find inside of the walls, and the same enemies exist inside and outside. It's not entirely effective, and it's going to eventually likely fail. But the only way to stop it is to do something that, if I'm interpreting this correctly, seems like it would kill the gods too, or something? If we were to destroy the heart? I'm not entirely sure if I'm reading that part correctly. That's the one thing, is that these documents are so long and kind of complicated that by the time I'm done with them, I may have been reading for an entire hour, and I'll try to keep as much of it in my head as possible, but I'm sure I'll misinterpret some of this or misremember some of it, but it's definitely a good read at the very least. And that is directly written by Vivek himself, who I believe is you? Yeah, just right there, which is a trip, because he's just standing there. Nerevar at Red Mountain. The following is from the Apocrypha, the hidden writings of the Tribunal Temple. It is a scholarly retelling of a tradition transmitted through the Ashlanders concerning the battle at Red Mountain and subsequent events. The Ashlanders associate this tale with the telling of Alandro Sul, a shield companion of Nerevar who came to live among the Ashlanders after the death of Nerevar and during the ascension of the Tribunal. There are many variant treatments of this story, but the primary elements are consistent throughout the tradition: the murder of Nerevar, the tragic fate of Dagoth-Ur, and the profane source of the Tribunal's divine power are denied by temple doctrine as ignorant Ashlander superstition, and not widely known among civilized Dunmer. Resdayn, present-day Morrowind, was contested ground between two different types of mer: the Chimere, or Chimere, probably Chimere like Chimera, who worshipped Daedra, and the Dwemer, who worshipped a profane and secret power. These two people warred with each other constantly until their lands were invaded by a young, vibrant, and violent alien culture, the Nords. It's always the Nords. Always Nordic people, always invading people, even in fiction, in fantasy worlds. Two heroes, one of the Chimere and one of the Dwemer, Indoril Nerevar and Dumak Dwarf Orc. Dwarf Orc? Interesting name there. Made peace between their people, and together ousted the alien invaders. Then these two heroes worked long and hard to maintain that peace thereafter, though their counselors thought it could not last, or worse, that it shouldn't. Nerevar's queen and his generals, Almalexia, Sotha Sil, and Vivek, told him to claim all Resdayn for his own, but Nerevar would not listen, for he remembered his friendship with Dumak. There would only be peace. Until Dagoth-Ur arrived, House Dagoth had discovered the source of the profane and secret power of the Dwemer, the legendary heart of Lorkhan, which Dwemer's people had used to make themselves immortal and beyond the measure of the gods. In fact, one of their high priests, Kagranak, was building a new god so that the Dwemer could claim Resdayn for their own. The Tribunal urged Nerevar again to make war on the dwarves. Nerevar was troubled. He went to Dumak, his friend of old, and asked if what Dagoth-Ur said was true. But Kagranak and the high priest of Dwemer had kept their new god secret from the king, and Dumak said the Dwemer was innocent of any wrongdoing. Nerevar was troubled again and made pilgrimage to Holamayan, the sacred temple of Azura, who confirmed that all that Dagoth-Ur said was indeed true, and that the new god of the Dwemer should be destroyed for the safety of not only Resdayn, but the whole world. When Nerevar went back and told his tribunal what the goddess had said, his queen and generals felt themselves proved aright, and again counseled him to war. There were reasons that the Dwemer and Chimere had hated each other forever. Finally, Nerevar, angered that his friend Dumak would lie to him, went back to Vardenfell. This time, the Chimere king was arrayed in arms and armor, and had his hosts around him. And he spoke harshly to Dumak Dwarf Orc, king of Red Mountain. "You must give up your worship of the heart of Lorkhan, or I shall forget our friendship and the deeds that were accomplished in his name." And Dumak, who still knew nothing of Kagranak's new god, but proud and protective as ever of his people, said, "We shall not relinquish that which has been our way for years beyond reckoning, just as the Chimere will not relinquish their ties to the lords and ladies of Oblivion." And to come to my door in this way, arrayed in arms and armor, and with your hosts around you, tells me that you have already forgotten our friendship. Stand down, my sweet Nerevar, or I swear, by the 15 and 1 golden tones, I shall kill you and all your people. And so the Chimera and Dwemer went to war. The Dwemer were well defended by their fortress and Red Mountain, but the bravery and cleverness of Nerevar's queen and generals drew most of Dumac's armies out into the field and kept them there, so that Nerevar and Dagoth-Ur could make their way into the Heart Chamber by secret means. There, Nerevar met Dumac and the Dwarf King, and they both fell from grievous wounds. That's disappointing that they fought and died for what was essentially deception, because Nerevar's friend was being lied to and didn't even know about the thing that Nerevar was accusing him of, and there was sort of a failure of communication here, and they weren't capable of convincing them because Nerevar thought that his friend was lying to him, and his friend didn't know why he was being attacked, and things escalated too quickly when additional communication might have been able to uncover what was going on, and instead they killed each other. And now Nerevar has to be reborn for any of this to even go anywhere. Let's see. Dagoth-Ur slew Kagranak and took the tools the Dwemer used to tap the power of the heart. He went to his dying lord Nerevar and asked him what to do with these tools, and Nerevar summoned Azura again. She showed them how to use the tools to separate the power of the heart from the Dwemer people. And on the fields, the tribunal and their armies watched as the Dwemer turned into dust all around them as their stolen immortality was taken away. Back in Red Mountain, Nerevar told Dagoth-Ur to protect the tools and the heart chamber until he returned. Dagoth-Ur said, "But shouldn't we destroy these tools at once, so they might never be used for evil again?" But Nerevar was confused by his wounds and his sorrow, for he still loved Dumac and the Dwemer people, and so went to the fields outside of Red Mountain to confer with his queen and his generals, who had foreseen that this war would come and whose counsel he would not ignore again. "I shall ask the tribunal what we shall do with them, for they have had wisdom in the past that I had not. Stay here, loyal Dagoth-Ur, until I return." So the reason why he was being carried is because he was wounded and likely on death's bed at that point. The Nerevar told his queen and generals all that had transpired under Red Mountain and how the Dwemer had used the special tools to turn their people into immortals, and of the wondrous power of the Heart of Lorkhan. The tribunal decided that the Chimera should learn how to use this power, so that Nerevar might claim Resdain and the world for their people. Nerevar did not expect or want this, so he asked his queen and generals to help him summon Azura yet again for her guidance. But the tribunal had become as greedy as Kagranak upon hearing of the power of the heart, and they coveted it. They made ritual, as if to summon Azura, as Nerevar wanted, but Almalexia used poisoned candles, and Sotha Sil used poisoned robes, and Vivek used poisoned invocations. Nerevar was murdered. So that's why Nerevar kind of just vanishes from the other story that was written by Vivek. Unless I missed something, it seemed like Nerevar went for council, and then everyone else went back to then went back to go get the power, and Nerevar seemed to just vanish from that story abruptly. And I was wondering why did Nerevar leave Dagoth-Ur with specific orders, but then never show up again in the story after that point? You know, us. But it's because he went back for counseling, but everyone poisoned him to death, so that they could then claim the power independently of him. Triple poison too. Like they're all equally responsible here. Nerevar was trying to confer with Azura, so Almalexia poisoned me, and Sotha Sil poisoned me, and Vivek even poisoned me. Great. Then Azura came forth anyway, and cursed the tribunal for their foul deeds. Well, that didn't work out. She told them that she would make use of her powers over dusk and dawn to make sure Nerevar would come back and make things right again. But the tribunal laughed at her and said that soon they would be gods themselves, and that the Chimera people would forget their old ways of worship. And Azura knew this would be true, and that it would take a long time before her power might bring Nerevar back. What you have done here today is foul beyond measure, and you will grow to regret it. For the lives of gods are not what mortals think, and matters that weigh only years to mortals weigh on gods forever. And so that they might know forever their wicked deeds, Azura changed the Chimera into Dunmer, and their skin turned ashen, and their eyes into fire. Let this mark remind you of your true selves, who, like ghouls, fed on the nobility, heroism, and trust of their king. And then the tribunal went into Red Mountain and met with Dagoth-Ur. Dagoth-Ur saw what had been done, for his skin had changed as well, and he tried to avenge the death of Nerevar, but to no avail. He was driven off and thought dead. The tribunal found the tools that he had been guarding, and through study of Kagranek's methods, turned themselves into gods. Thousands of years after their apotheosis, I don't know. the tribunal are still the gods of Morrowind, and the old ways of worship are remembered only by a few, and the murder of Nerevar is known to fewer. But his queen and generals still fear his return, for the words of Azura linger long, and they see the mark of her curse on their people every day. Was Nerevar at Red Mountain? Was it Battle of Red Mountain? I just want to double check to see if I missed a detail about his death, or if it literally is just omitted, because it seemed like it was. These are really good documents that explain so much, and this is the time to explain that kind of stuff. Let's see. So this is the battle. Let's see. Went back to Vardenfell one last time. They were well defending their fortress. The fight happened. Kagrak destroyed his own people. Stay here, loyal Dagoth-Ur, and I shall return. So this is where we left off. He was carried. Let's see. He told them about the power. After hearing Nerevar, we gave counsel as he requested, proposing we should preserve these tools. And who knows, perhaps they're not forever, but merely gone. We need to save this for future generations. Yeah, look at this bullshit. Let's see. Yeah, this is a completely different story. It says that Nerevar voiced misgivings, but he was willing to be ruled by our council. And then we went back with Nerevar to Red Mountain. But like that, yeah, this was after Dagoth-Ur already had the powers. So yeah. So according to Vivek's story, Nerevar went back with them all the way back to confront Dagoth-Ur. But according to this other story, Nerevar at Red Mountain, Nerevar was already dead. And this is from the Apocrypha, the hidden writings. So this is the secret version of the story. That's the difference here. This is the secret part of the story that no one's supposed to know about, which is the fact that the current gods of the Tribunal poisoned the Nerevar to death so they could get their way, because they are the ultimate, just terrible scumbag people. Great. And now I get to talk to one. Is he gonna acknowledge that part of the document? Because, like, I feel like we have some bad blood to deal with now. Or is he just gonna keep flexing? Oh boy.